Ajnatimirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hi, my name is Madhav or Radhamadhav Das. I'm from Switzerland and I'm living in India for the last 14 years, and I've been doing a lot of kirtans, chanting mantras with a lot of wonderful devotees who have inspired me with their wonderful loving devotion and energy. And I was asked to share my experience with you, and I'm very happy to be given this opportunity. We're talking about how mantras, how kirtan can create peace in the world and peace within yourself. And of course, chanting is not only creating peace inside of you but also in the world, because once you attain peace with yourself, naturally you also tend to have peace with others. Whereas if you're not in peace with yourself, peace with others can be put on stage like a show, but it's not really genuine, and the others do feel that. So it's very important for us to become peaceful with ourselves, and mantras and kirtans are perfect for that, because it makes you realize that there is this inner peace waiting for you, and you just have to tap into that wonderful pool of loving devotion, which gives you assurance that all the struggling in this world is only temporary, and there is this inner realm of loving devotion and peace. And not just peace, but even more than that, bliss and spiritual ecstasy. So it gives you peace, and more than that, it even gives you bliss. Because peace, what does it mean? It means there's no more struggling, no more war, no more conflict. So it's a kind of a zero stage, you can say. But then we need to go into the plus, into the positive, which is of course bliss, which is anandam in Sanskrit. So in the kirtan tradition, we can experience not just bliss, but the highest bliss, which is called Paramanand, the highest bliss. And this happens by the energy of the Lord, which descends in the form of transcendental sound vibration. So just now I was playing the flute because we know the sacred syllable Om. And we know that Lord Brahma created the entire creation. Whatever we see, we hear the birds, we see the trees, we see the humans walking around. And all that was created through sacred sound, through Om. But very few know that Lord Brahma meditated on the flute play of Lord Krishna. And that's how he attained the divine knowledge. That's how Gayatri Mantra appeared personified to him. And then when he chanted the Gayatri Mantra, then he realized how to create, and he manifested the entire universes. So the beautiful thing about this, it's not just a story, it actually happened like that. And even nowadays in science we can see that scientists are again coming closer to this reality, transcendental reality. The circle kind of closes. We have theories like string theory in quantum physics, which talk about vibrations being the underlying reality of the more dense reality, the subtle sublime reality that creates the more dense reality of matter. So circles are closing now in many disciplines, psychology, ethics, etc. And so kirtan and mantras are the divine messages from transcendence which relink us to the realm of peace, and even more so to the realm of bliss. Because we don't just want peace, we want bliss. And that is, of course, something that is in itself intrinsically transcendental, because the bliss in this material world is temporary, whereas the bliss that descends from transcendence is eternal. And it is never ending, in the sense that it's always increasing and increasing. So when I first heard mantras and kirtans, I was in Switzerland that time. I was a teenager. Immediately it touched me from deep within. And I remember I was studying that time in the university in Zurich, in the ETH. And in my free time, I would just hear these wonderful mantras and chants under a tree, just outside our flat. And it would just take me to the realm of bliss in a fraction of a second, and I was just crying and crying. And all the knots in my heart from so many lifetimes would open up, and I was able to relish this peace deep within and this bliss that then takes over. And so that's how I was attracted through mantras and kirtans, and I knew I will go to India. It's just a question of time. Then in 2001, that's already 18 years ago, I came to India the first time, and I had the good fortune to be traveling with wonderful world-class musicians of classical Indian music, which is very dear to me. And they took me around India, like, disciples of Pandit Ravi Shankar, Zakir Hussain, B.V. Venkatesh, and I was traveling with Shashank, the wonderful Carnatic flutist, and so many other amazing musicians. And through these wonderful chants and ragas, I was able to reconnect to my inner self from previous lives, and I was able to then realize that what we are experiencing right now is a longer story. It's not just this short story of this one lifetime. And I realized that, of course, India is my home for many, many lifetimes already. And so in 2005, I came here and finally settled down in India. And I started chanting more systematically. Now, before that, in 2001, this is interesting for people to know in general, I come from a scientific background. I was trained to be an environmental scientist at the IIT Zurich. It's called ETH. And I didn't get my master's degree because in the middle of my master's degree, I had a burst of my heart. And I scored very well, but imagine, you're in your graduation and you stand up and you leave. That's exactly what happened to me. So once that inner bliss takes over, anything can happen, and you have to be ready for it, and you have to let it take over, and then the magic really starts. So when that happened, I walked out of the university, and of course all my friends thought I'm crazy, but that's when my life really started. And I went on pilgrimage to so many wonderful places, and I was given mantras, Vedic mantras, to chant by a Pandit who was a music teacher, and he happened to be a Brahmana. And Brahmanas, when they teach, they always give mantras to the student. And he told me, write this down, and I wrote it down, and he told me, now chant this every day. Okay, sure, I'll do as you say. And amazing transformation happened in my heart. Now, I did not know Sanskrit. I did not know the meaning of these mantras, but I had wonderful realizations just chanting it. So I realized this works. This is not just some, placebo. And interestingly, later on, when I then started to really study the tradition, the Vedic tradition, and I learned Sanskrit, I learned the meaning of these mantras. Amazingly, the meaning of these mantras exactly corresponded to the realization I got without knowing the meaning. So that for me was a clear evidence that this is definitely not a placebo. because I could not have told myself that meaning because I didn't know, right? No one told me. So just like medicine works without you knowing what's inside, it's a science after all, it's a medical science. Similarly, mantras, they also work even if you don't know what's inside, even if you don't know what it means. And to me that was an eye-opener. I always had the faith, but it was a very, very deep and interesting experience that I love to share with others who are on the edge of, diving into this pool of nectar, because you just have to take one step, dive in, and then the transcendence takes over, God is just waiting for us to make that one step. And it's said that if you take one step to God, He runs to you with 1,000 steps. And that's exactly what we can experience in Kirtan and in the mantras, because it's like a child crying for its mother. It's like you miss your lover so much, and it's an outburst of your soul to reach out to God, to reach out to transcendence. And God is just waiting for us. Imagine you're a mother and your child is lost, and you're just waiting till the child calls you and wants to come back on your lap. Of course, you will run and pick it up. Now, why He doesn't do that earlier is because, God gives us independence, because love has to be voluntary, otherwise it would be robotics, it would be mechanical. And so we have enjoyed, in quote unquote, our independence here for some time, and then we realized that, wow, actually dependence on the all blissful, all loving God is much more beautiful, and that's real love. And then you start to call out to him or her or them, and that's kirtan, that's mantra. And so then, of course, I started to follow things in a more traditional way, and it was really interesting. Again, there were so many meetings of old friends, you can say, that I had met before, spiritual truth and wisdoms and wonderful feelings that I met before now became more clear. So of course I can recommend anybody to follow some traditional path ultimately, but I also want to say that it can happen even without a tradition, like it did in my case. It's something that doesn't require blind faith, it's a science. So that's one thing that I wanted to share with all of you. And then regarding to tradition is like a river. You have two river beds, and there's so much more to say about that, but in brief I'm just explaining to you, trying to explain to you by the mercy of my seniors. And the flow of transcendence is much, much stronger if it comes in what's called parampara. That's guru and shishya, means spiritual master and disciple dissension, because it's like a river that has a very clear, embankment, right, left and right, and it flows in a very, very strong way, and it doesn't get diverted here and there all the time. It's like a focus. So just like if you have an hourglass and you put it into the right position, it burns paper, right? So similarly, transcendence descends in the cyclic succession with much more precision and force. So when I met my spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Goswami Maharaj, I saw exactly this wonderful phenomenon, how this transcendence just gushes through him, through this channel. It comes through him, and when he starts kirtan, for example, he prays to his spiritual master, to the entire transcendental disciplic succession, to the Supreme Lord, that they may purify his heart so that the pure love of God can enter his heart and come through him and inspire others also. And then you see his entire being transforms, and it's like an eruption of a volcano. Before it bursts out, you can see the eruptions. So his body has these kind of ecstatic symptoms, and then when he finally starts the kirtan, it's like a volcano, exploding and erupting, and the kirtan is like the magma gushing out from the depth of his heart. He always says, chant from the core of the heart. That's one of his main big teachings. So when you see him chanting, it's like a beautiful volcano of divine love erupting right there in front of you, and everyone is just blown away. In fact, I've seen newcomers, I've seen people who didn't know much about him. They're just crying, having this darshan, this beautiful vision of this divine personality who is now a pure media for transcendental love of God. And kirtan is this magma that comes out from the depth of his heart, and then he starts dancing. And he was dancing up to his 80s, and even 90s, imagine, and seeing that, you're just blown away, it's just unimaginable. It's not something from this world. And that is the ecstasy of kirtan, that is the bliss of kirtan that we all crave for. Who doesn't want to sing? Who doesn't want to dance? Everybody in this world wants to sing and chant and dance, even on the street, anywhere. But we feel apprehension, we feel shy to do it. We have a knot, so many knots are there in our heart. And kirtan is exactly that wonderful media that opens up all these knots, so we can again find our original nature of bliss and sing and chant and dance. This is very obvious to everybody that this is our nature, but who's actually doing it? Look around you, the devotees are doing it. So those who have eyes will see, those who have ears will hear, and those who are blessed will chant. So I invite you to experience this bliss, and then peace is a side effect, because if you have the plus, the negative, the minus is already overcome. There's no question of envy, because you're loving everybody by nature, because you recognize they're my brothers and sisters. How is it possible to recognize everyone as brothers and sisters? It's not just an artificial superimposition on our mind. It's realizing that we're all daughters and sons of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus natural we're brothers and sisters. It's what I call the God Brotherhood. We have this wonderful God Brotherhood that makes us brothers and sisters, and kirtan is the easiest way to realize that. Calling out the Lord's names and then realizing God, because you will realize God in your heart. It's not just some blind faith, it's very scientific. And then once we have one father, mother, we're all brothers and sisters, there's no more doubt about it. And then peace is natural. It's no more something that you have to establish artificially, but you live it, you breathe it. And kirtan mantras is the way to reach that state of peace and moreover bliss. And so it's a wonderful journey that I want to invite you all onto. And in the beginning it's a little difficult if you need to find your home, which tradition to follow, which guru to believe. There's so many false prophets, false gurus, and people have become really critical, which is good. We should be critical. We should not just follow anybody. So what I always recommend in the beginning is just chant the universal prayer. It comes in many ways. I put it into poetry and into a song. I will chant it for you. You don't have to do it this way. You can change it and sing it in your own language, in your own words. This may be an inspiration for you. So I will close with this universal prayer, and then I will pray a prayer for you. Oh Lord, I don't know you 'cause I'm blind to see, but Almighty you can reveal yourself to me. Oh Lord, I don't know you 'cause I'm blind to see, but Almighty you can reveal yourself to me. O Lord, please show me how I should approach Thee. O Lord, please show me how I should approach Thee, so You will reveal Your true self unto me. So You will reveal Your true self unto me. I want Your true self, whatever the price may be. I want Your true self, whatever the price may be. I'm surrendered to You unconditionally. I'm devoted to You unconditionally. And then you can repeat that as much as you want, as long as you want. You can do it quietly, loudly, you can dance to it, you can put, I composed it on guitar, so unfortunately I didn't have it here right now. And it's wonderful if you do this in a group. We chanted this yesterday in a group, it was very wonderful. And we did it in German, so you can do it in any language. And then wonders will happen, because once you call out to the Lord, He will come to you, definitely. It's my personal experience. It's the experience of thousands and thousands of devotees. And Kirtan is the magic key to unlock the treasure house of love of God. And the scriptures say that especially in this age, the chanting of the name of the Lord is the only way that gives you the most benefit immediately. And right now the bell is ringing to confirm the wonderful wisdom
so
of...
why don't you chant the name of the Lord first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Bolo Patita Pavan Srila Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. So it is my sincere prayer that you take this wonderful opportunity of being able to chant kirtans and mantras and open up this treasure house of divine love of God, and then dive into the ocean of the nectar of the holy name. Hare Krishna. Shanti.